everyone. This may have worked out having a few minutes lag because it gave us an opportunity to get everything up. So I would like to formally welcome you to Networking Remotely, a practical guide to connecting with others online for career growth. And just to reiterate that wonderful intro that Sophie provided, my name is Stephanie Thoma. I am the founder and author of Confident Introvert. I work with executives on leadership skills and up-leveling in a really holistic way. So we will dive right in. Today we're covering how to present yourself online, ways to structure your day, and last but not least, ways to network remotely. And typically these sessions, this session would be highly interactive. You are welcome to utilize the chat function and speak amongst yourselves for this initial 30-minute presentation. And just know that after this presentation, we will have free-flowing back and forth Q&A. So if I am not able to answer your question during the presentation, just know that that's coming up. So here are a few reasons why you are here, why you are in this presentation. So perhaps you're unsure about the next steps in your career. Maybe you feel anxious about networking. Feel free in the comments amongst yourselves, write down the numbers of what resonates with you here. So maybe you're curious about how to network online. Your industry is in flux. You're moving to a new place. Many moves are going on right now. So if you're moving, you are not alone, shout it out. Or perhaps you're questioning your job security. As things are in flux, you're wondering, will my job exist tomorrow? Or you're just excited. Let's, high vibe here. You're excited to try something different and new. So we'll start with presenting yourself online. So this is a bit much, right? You're like, okay, Stephanie, great. Here are 5 pictures of you in a row. What's going on? So the point that I'm bringing up here is that it's important to, first of all, have a high resolution headshot. So feel free in the comments amongst yourselves, who has a high resolution headshot already? If you don't, it's okay because you can make one. You can either hire a photographer to do that. There are socially distant photographers out there right now. That Zoom picture comes in handy, or you can DIY it. So if you have, for example, a phone with a camera, a high resolution camera, you can either recruit someone who lives with you, recruit a friend, or utilize a tripod and the portrait mode. And just some quick tips for that, you'd like to have some space on either side of your head, above your head, and show some of your torso. Let's not be a floating head, but let's also not get too close and personal where it's like, do you have a chin? But then not so far away and cropped out where you see hands on shoulders and it's obviously a wedding photo. That's a very popular one. This is your first impression. So as we're networking online, pretty much, let's say as we're in a waiting room, or as let's say you have a meeting coming up and someone takes a look on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever the social media platform of choice is, it's important to make that good first impression with a high resolution headshot and be consistent. Use that headshot across platforms. So another aspect of presenting yourself online is leading with the question, how can I help? So this can take a bit of introspection and perhaps redefinition if you are undergoing a career change. So a quick way to describe what you stand for in business, in life, is focus on the value that you bring and the results that you bring, let's say your clients or people that you work with. Show what you can give. And this can also be self-described. So particularly if you are in transition, or if you'd like to be in transition, this is a great time to redefine yourself. And I'm not saying if you aspire to have a PhD, say, you know what, I have a PhD. I just feel it. It's like, no, we're not trying to go for anything fraudulent here. But for example, this is how I presented myself online with this one key statement on my LinkedIn as I first began my company, Confident Introvert. So helping introverts feel confident and forge career boosting relationships at networking events and beyond. So you'll notice that when people ask what you do or what you stand for, you can focus on, okay, who do you help and how do you help them? And just kind of I'd love for people to type in to the chat just so that you can get some inspiration from each other. Feel free to share how you can help. And certainly another aspect of presenting yourself online is knowing where to show up and actually showing up. So which sites are you active on? I'd love you to go into the comments right now and just comment the numbers. So here are some primary social media channels. They include LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube. So you could be active on all these platforms, hopefully at least one. And if you're not active on any, you know what? It's a great time to start. So, okay, great. I'm seeing a lot of LinkedIn's. Okay, awesome. And oh, one more component before we move on here is if you are kind of overwhelmed by social media, does anyone feel a little bit overwhelmed sometimes? Because I've listed 7 platforms. There are way more than 7 platforms available. So you may be wondering, where should I spend my time? And the rule of thumb here is to focus on 2 platforms and to post on each platform 3 times a week. And you can feel free to do more, but it really just depends on what is comfortable for you. And what I like to do, for example, is repurpose content. And maybe I'll make slight tweaks depending on what I feel is best for the platform, but you can certainly post something on Facebook that then auto-populates with a scheduling tool. Like I like Planoly, there's also Hootsuite, there are so many where you can schedule content for business purposes. And even if you are currently employed at a company, having this entrepreneurial mindset and focusing on having your own personal brand. I mean, essentially it's just choosing what you stand for and being that and contributing that to the company that you work for and work within, so that, you know, perhaps if something doesn't work out for any reason, especially in these uncertain times, you're not scrambling to define yourself and going through an existential crisis of, oh my gosh, who am I? Because I thought I was this role within this company. Certainly you can be that, but that's one piece of the larger puzzle. So, for example, being on LinkedIn, especially as we network in a professional capacity, that's a great one to be on. So if you are not currently on LinkedIn, especially if you are building a business, if you are seeking to be a part of a company to get hired, then having a presence on LinkedIn is crucial. And then Facebook, people are using Facebook more and more for professional purposes. Instagram even, it's very visual, and it's a great place to showcase a variety of quotes that resonate with you on a personal level, that are inspirational, and kind of to let people behind the curtain a little bit and get to know you as an individual. That's the basis of networking, that authentic human connection, letting people kind of in to know you beyond a static profile picture. And then Twitter is great for writers, authors, people who are breaking news of any kind or wanting to be on top of certain trends. And TikTok, woo, so there's a lot going on with TikTok, but I will say that is a great place to let's say reach a slightly younger demographic, but that is shifting in short video form, right? And then Snapchat. So that platform, you know, if you are devoting time to that, I would say that seems a little bit more personally focused. And then YouTube is great for building thought leadership and being consistent. Okay, so Piper asks, when you say post 3 times a week, can you give guidance on and what types of posts to make? Okay, so yes, and people have said, yes, very overwhelmed by social. Okay, well, I think it's great we're going over this then, because knowledge is power. And yeah, to answer Piper's question about what do you post 3 times a week? So I do have a background in social media management, which has helped guide what I do within my own business. So what I can share with you, if you are feeling overwhelmed by the social media beast, like what do I do? How do I make this work for me? So what I will suggest to you, Piper, is to have, let's say, if you're posting 3 times a week, perhaps each week each day of the week has a specific type of post. Maybe you post Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that could be auto posted, or I like to have the flexibility to, if something is highly relevant, give yourself the opportunity to switch out that post. So you can have what's called evergreen content, where you can post that any time of day, any time of year, and it will resonate with people. Lots of inspirational quotes can be evergreen. However, let's say that something happens in the world. It's great to be mindful of that, because, for example, if you pre-scheduled content about hug a stranger today during a global pandemic, not a great choice, right? So that's where you can kind of go wrong with pre-scheduling content that's evergreen. So it's great to revisit that. But let's say on Mondays, you post an inspirational quote, hashtag Motivation Monday, for example. And then if you are posting on Wednesday, you can post, let's say, an industry-specific image and give a tip for how to break into that industry or get more immersed into the industry that you're in. And then number 3, if you'd like, could be a just for fun post where it doesn't need to be 100% professional as we know it. This could be the post where, oh, here's a throwback of a vacation that I went on, and here's what I love most about France. Or, just kind of play around with what works for you and what feels authentic for you on social. And okay, who has struggled with the whole work from home situation? So we are certainly networking remotely, but many of us are working remotely for perhaps the first time ever. So here are some fundamentals to set the groundwork and set a comfort level as you work from home that will also parlay and translate into you feeling more comfortable as you network remotely. So the first item you'll see here is a clock. And the key here is to have a consistent waking time. So I prefer to have the same waking time on weekends. Feel free, comment what time you usually wake up. And it's kind of fun to see these comments. They can be across the board sometimes. My current wake up time right now, I love a good 8:30. I think that's nice, Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, the key is to be consistent there, because again, when we are thinking of our energy levels and what we have to exert when we're spending more time online, sometimes it can be exhausting. We'll go into that later, how to keep from feeling exhausted. But here's one safeguard: to have a consistent waking time. And then you'll see this nice person doing a stretch over here. So first thing in the morning, before you eat, before you do work, I highly recommend doing something active. It doesn't need to be a marathon, but if you want to, go for it. That's awesome. But you could stretch, just having a ritual that gets you off your feet, right? So it could be yoga, it could be running. So for example, I started something very early in this pandemic in March. It's on Instagram. It's Stoic Plank. And what I've been doing is doing a plank, like a workout plank, and reading a philosophical quote from the book, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. So I think that that's been very grounding in many ways, but you can kind of figure out what works for you, or certainly sync up with me there. And every morning, unless there's some sort of a tech glitch, it will be up. And then you'll also see a chair right here. So the idea here is to have a dedicated workspace. So not all of us have an office. And if you have an office, that's wonderful. If you don't, then what you can do is designate a chair, or if you don't have that many chairs, there are more things you can do, right? Then to have a dedicated space where, even if, let's say, you're working with a dining room table, and typically don't we always have that chair that we gravitate towards where we eat our meals, then maybe a different chair is your work chair, a different orientation. But I myself, typically at my home office situation, I have a chair that is my designated work chair, and it's in a corner of a room, and I just know this is where I'm productive. And then here, okay, last item over here, you'll see face-to-face. And I'm not saying go out and break social distancing, not necessarily, no. So this face-to-face icon signals the importance of making virtual eye contact. So you may be thinking, oh, what's the point? I have my headshot, I just want to roll out of bed and not worry about my appearance because, you know, that's one of the pleasures of staying home all day, right? Where you just get to be in PJs, be comfy. However, having eye contact actually enables people to feel more connected with you. So there was a study done by a university in Finland earlier this year that suggested that even virtually activates the parasympathetic nervous system and breeds feelings of connection. So especially as we are networking remotely, this is a really crucial item to be aware of. Keep that camera on. Okay, and then this is from my book, Confident Introvert, the Daily 3-2-1. So I mentioned earlier that this presentation is holistic, looking at the person as a business professional, but also a human being, right? So this is a great way to, you can either start your day with this routine. It's a power hour of managing your energy, or you can do it, I prefer last thing before bed. So you'll want to do 30 minutes of reading, and please go ahead and comment what you're reading right now, followed by 20 minutes of journaling and 10 minutes of meditation. So does anyone here meditate? Feel free to comment on that. And I will say, if you are new to meditation, starting out with 10 minutes, and you can try an app like Calm, Buddhify, and I'm sure those of us on the call are aware of them, so feel free to comment what you like to do if you use an app. But actually, my favorite situation is to light a candle and to have pure silence. It can at first be intimidating to sit with our thoughts for that long, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But if you are experiencing brain fog, this is your key to mental clarity, meditation. And it seems counterintuitive sometimes, where, okay, I'm going to sit down and do nothing. Isn't that a waste of time? It's like, no, because you will save so much time in your waking life when you're walking around, you know, doing things. When you're in meetings, you'll be sharper, more clear. Oh, okay. So someone in the chat says, my mind wanders and I don't have the patience for it. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna give you some, before I address that, there are some great, some people like Headspace, Simple Habit. Those are other apps that you can utilize. So if your mind wanders, then you may want to begin with a guided meditation. You can find them on YouTube as well. You don't necessarily need an app. If you search guided meditation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just making it a daily habit is the most important thing, and you can build from there. And also, okay, not resisting your wandering mind will be very key in getting over that hurdle of a wandering mind. Because sometimes, right, if you've tried to meditate and it wasn't what you thought it would be, then you may be thinking, okay, thoughts, get out of my head, stop. But that resistance perpetuates it. What has anyone ever heard? What you resist persists, right? So if you are having trouble, then getting used to observing, being a passive observer of your thoughts, and to say, oh, there's another one. Okay, I'll let it pass. It's okay, thought, that you're there, but I'm just going to allow you to pass through my mind, imagining it going in one ear, out the other. And I find it really mesmerizing to have a candle lit and to kind of fixate my gaze on that candle. That can be really nice. And now we're hopping on in to networking. So I'd like to know how you define it. So Sophie is still here, so kindly letting me know some of her comments, texting as fast as she can. So feel free. How do you define it? It can be a feeling, a word, anything like that. Ooh, but before we go into that, so Barry said, contemplative meditation on appreciation, affiliation, generosity, and affinity is spiritually uplifting. Yes, Barry, that sounds really nice. Okay, so please do let me know how you define it, how you feel about it. It could be one keyword, it could be a phrase. And I'm going to move on as we're getting that conversation going. But here's a reframe. So you're always networking. Some people think, oh, when I dress up and go to a virtual or previously in-person event where people are there to talk business, that's networking. But actually, newsflash, every social engagement that you have is networking, because the way our society is structured, pretty much everyone has a job. Either maybe they are an employee, own a business. So, and of course, not every single person in the world subscribes to this way of being in the world, but it's pretty common. So chances are most of the people that you meet will fall into this providing a job, having a job scenario. Okay, so Joanna says networking equals connecting. Piper says networking equals contact. Andrew says learning, and ooh, who knows you? Nice. Okay. So yes, this whole idea of connecting and not necessarily being contingent on a certain goal. Yeah, although it can be nice to have a goal, people can feel that when you walk into, let's say these days, a virtual space and you're like, okay, I really want a job. And then it's the first thing you say. It's like, no, focusing on that connection and having that sense of trust that I will get the things that I want in the time that it's meant to happen, and I will be proactive and calm and trust this process. Okay. Oh yeah, who's ever had a Zoom hangover? It happens. It's no fault of your own. There are lots of meetings. It's how we live our days these days. An antidote to a Zoom hangover being having back to back Zoom meetings and feeling lethargic and depleted when even during or after the experience. So my recommendation here is another concept from Confident Introvert. It's to have a solitude sandwich. And what that means is right here, you'll see a nice turkey sandwich. If you're a vegetarian, imagine some peanut butter instead. So the middle of the sandwich is your event. It's your activity. It's where you're like, all right, here we go. Like we are present, we are in this thing. And then the pieces of bread are solitude or downtime. So what you'll want to do is make sure, especially if you are prone to Zoom hangovers and just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm on this hamster wheel and it's just a series of Zoom calls and then I pass out like in my bed, waking up in a haze. It's like, okay, that's no way to live. Even if it's giving yourself 15 minutes on either end of that meeting or activity, then it's worth it. And sometimes scheduling that time in, if you have a virtual conference, for example, I once attended earlier on in this quarantine, a virtual conference that was 8 hours a day for 2 days. And it was a lot of Zoom time. So I made sure it started very early. So maybe in the morning, I had a half an hour buffer where it's like, hey, let's have my tea. And then in the evenings, I unplugged and spent my time reading and really sort of decompressing, getting ready for another 8-hour shift with nonstop content and mini networking breakouts the entire next day. All right, now is also a great time to start a deeper conversation. So a question that I commonly get is, while I am networking online, how do I start a conversation? And I will let's start with what do you do? Let's not do that, especially with unemployment at an all-time high. And even before it was an all-time high, sometimes people are in transition or in flux or don't even like what they do. And it's just not, there are better questions to ask. And especially now with a lot of people considering so many different ways that our world is shifting, this is a time to get a little deeper, but not necessarily pessimistic. So an example, you can read through these and choose what feels right for you. Some of these you may think, oh, I've never asked that. And others you think, oh, okay, I can work with it. So for example, what's the project you're excited about working on? So what I like about this question is it's open-ended and it is a project. I mean, people could assume that it's work, but you could even stipulate, okay, this could be work or outside of work. So what if there's a CPA who in the evening is a DJ and they're mixing up tracks and doing all that fun stuff? No one ever asks, oh, they've just gotten used to, as they meet people, oh yeah, I'm a CPA. And I mean, maybe they love being a CPA, that's great, but this other thing really lights them up and they never get to talk about it. So an open-ended question like that allows people to dig a little bit deeper and you get to know them better. And that's how you ultimately connect, when it doesn't feel like a static conversation where you're reciting lines, where there's that sense of open-endedness and thinking of the person in front of you as a total human being, right? So feel free to comment any conversation starters that you like. All right, and now your virtual networking options. How do you virtually network? So people are saying, okay, you should do that. Like people were saying before, you should network. And then you're like, how do I do that? And now it's like, okay, we're online. How do I do that? So we'll go into one-on-one networking apps, online conferences, leveraging canceled in real life events, and how to be a connector. So here are a few networking apps that I particularly like. They all were originally designed to connect people online to then meet up in person. And now they've transitioned to connect people online to meet up online. So first we have Lunch Club. They're based in San Francisco. And yeah, you can have 1 to 5 meetings per week on this platform. And you can also mix up the location of where people are located. If you're contemplating to move, or if you recently moved, then this is a really great feature where you can target meeting certain people in different areas. And there's Bumble Biz, which is a component of the general Bumble app. And then you have, which they're based in Austin, Texas, and then Shaper Networking, they're based in New York. They kind of started this whole one-on-one networking app trend. And yeah, these are all great ones. I would recommend each one of these as you meet more people online. And especially if you're more comfortable in those one-on-one capacity events. And, you know, certainly like Bevy, so basically this platform that we're using for the CMX Summit, they are having one-on-one breakout sessions as well. So I would absolutely say that if you're looking into online conferences or events, that's a plus, because that means everyone who is attending that event, they have something in common, right? They were drawn to the event, or there's a certain presentation they're particularly excited about. And essentially you are in a virtual room with them, and you'll get randomly matched. All right, then how do you ask for a virtual coffee? Let's say that you don't necessarily want to leave it to chance. You'd prefer to reach out to someone directly. There's someone that you want to meet. So what you can do here is, this is just a template that you can use. So for example, hi Liz, it was great meeting you at the virtual conference yesterday. Would like to learn more about your thoughts on the digital marketing segment. Let's catch up over a virtual coffee. How about 15 or 30 minutes this Thursday afternoon? And I do often get questions about that last segment. That's so specific, 15 or 30 minutes this Thursday afternoon. And the reason why we're being so specific is because it takes the work away from the other person. If you ask, when are you free? Then there's this idea of, oh my goodness, okay, I have to go into my calendar. When am I free? But this way you're getting the ball rolling. And when you say 15 or 30, 15 sometimes sounds a lot better to busy people than 30. And then you get to really direct the conversation and make it sort of pack a punch in the sense that it's productive and doesn't drag on. And who knows, it could always run a little longer. Sometimes busy people will cap it at 15 minutes or maybe 30, depending. And then it can extend a little bit longer if they're actually getting value and enjoying the conversation. So it's nice to allow yourself that buffer. And let's see. All right. So yeah, so as you're asking for a virtual coffee, we may go into it a little bit later, how to warm people up to this ask, because you may think, okay, great. So here's a template: greeting, context, personal detail, value add. Then you ask, then you present a date and general time. So basically there is this concept of 3-2-1. So it's a different 3-2-1. Essentially, what you will do, let's say that it's a speaker at a virtual conference that you would like to connect with. Then what you'll do is you will like 3 of their posts, let's say across social media platforms, or maybe on one, and you can do this over a span of, let's say, a week, or it could be same day. And then you comment onto, and not just one-word comments, thoughtful comments. And then the one is this direct message. All right. And so when it comes to video, here's some tips for being on video. So a few platforms that you may be invited to or you may host from include Zoom, FaceTime, Google Hangouts, or the platform we're using right now. And my recommendation is to log in early. If you are a presenter, 30 minutes. If you're attending, 15. This just gives you a buffer. And of course, there are some platforms where you'll be in a waiting room and you can't really log in early, and that's fine. But you never know. You could have an update on your computer that needs to happen. And if you wait until the very last minute, you won't have time to be able to remedy that situation, right? So giving yourself a buffer is just another way to be kind to yourself during this time. And also quiet. So not all of us have access to quiet spaces at the moment. So I'd like to see in the chat, is anyone currently homeschooling children? Is anyone currently spending a lot of quality time with a barking dog, or perhaps there's construction 24/7 outside. So yeah, there's a variety of things that can keep the quiet from being in your space. However, one way to remedy that is, typically I would be wearing my earphones, but I just so happen to be in a very quiet space right now. I feel very lucky. But typically there is construction outside of my apartment on most days these days. So what I will do is wear earphones that have a mic attached. That way it helps isolate the sounds. You can also invest in a dynamic mic that you plug into your computer. A dynamic mic is typically used during live events, and it will isolate your sound. So yeah, make sure it's well lit as well. It's nice to be able to see the person in front of you, right? And also, again, back to that study that we referenced earlier, let's not default to an avatar. Let's have our cameras on and be able to connect with people in a face-to-face way, even though it is virtual. And also, dressing professionally, it really depends on the industry that you're in. I'm not saying that you need to necessarily wear a suit. However, in certain industries, that can't hurt. Or maybe an interview, it can't hurt. However, just wearing PJs that look like PJs. I mean, I'm a fan. If you can find a pair of PJs that looks business casual, do that. I think that's a great idea. But just for the sake of showing up in a way that you'd like to show up, making these first impressions, making sure that you're dressed professionally. If you typically, when you would go to an in-person event, if you would typically, let's say, have a certain grooming schedule, brushed hair and things like that. And I know it can be silly to bring this up, but there's a lot going on right now. And sometimes it's the little things that we can kind of let slide and rationalize. Oh, it's okay if I don't do that. But no, it'll keep you sharp as long as you maintain some of those habits. And also, last but not least, when it comes to video, be present. So essentially here, I would like to ask, this will benefit everyone involved. Let's not have multiple tabs open. Let's not be on our phones. And it's funny as I say that because I'm checking my phone only to see what Sophie sends me in terms of your comments. But typically, oh, my phone would be away. I would be totally focused on you. So that's, people know when your attention is divided. And think of being at an in-person event, right? If you were checking your phone while talking with someone, it really depends on where you are. I know in certain parts of California, people might say, oh, that's okay. Oh, yeah, you're busy. That's okay. But deep down, nobody likes that. Come on. So it's a way to show respect for the other person and the connection that is blossoming. Okay. All right. So when you're at online conferences, so a common question that I get is, where do I go? Where do I start? Where are these online conferences? And okay, I think this really helps that you are attending one right now. Like you're already ahead of the game. You're literally attending an online conference right now. So, but if you'd like to attend more, feel free to check out event companies that you typically attend events through or at. And this could be, let's say that there's a local startup, or it doesn't matter if it's local anymore. It could be an international conference or event. Chances are many of them have gone online. This is an opportunity for you to use this to your advantage and attend events anywhere in the world. And you can find these on Facebook, Eventbrite, and Meetup, as well as other sites, but I found the most luck with these. And you can search by industry, company, and general topic. And again, if you'd like to connect with a speaker, it could be someone that you meet. We went over this later, but it can help to have it in writing right in front of you. So to create a warm introduction, like 3 social posts, comment on 2, and send a direct message. All right, so here's some tips of what to avoid. Has anyone ever been asked, can I pick your brain? That's not a recommendation. In fact, just think about that. Think of that visual, but not longer than you need to, just a split second, and then you'll know that it's not a nice question to ask someone. And again, embracing this you view. So you could message someone asking, hey, can you help me with XYZ? But if, let's say, they're busy, they're working on, they're working high up within a company, they own their own company, they may want to help you, but they're just so busy. If you can let them know how speaking with you will be beneficial to them in any way that is an actual benefit to them, not just kind of twisting like, oh yeah, that's just something to be mindful of, right? Okay. And before you send a LinkedIn invitation, always personalize with a message, particularly if you would like to connect with a speaker or someone that you met at a virtual conference. Perhaps they connected with a high quantity of people, or maybe you didn't have direct communication. So when they see your invitation, they just may not remember your full name. So a healthy reminder is really nice. Let them know how you know of them. So for example, you can say, hey, you were at the networking remotely session, and I really liked your comments, or, this is assuming that you can see first and last names. This is something you can really do in this session. I highly encourage everyone to network here while we are in this session, in addition to the breakouts that are provided. And then you're welcome to ask for a virtual coffee with a clear why. So this is after you've taken a moment to look at their LinkedIn and notice some things and be able to present, hey, if you would like to have that meeting and take it a step further from that initial online connection, be able to articulate a reason why. And you would ask for a virtual coffee after they've accepted the connection, just to clarify. And you can also be a connector. So you can create a Facebook group. You can create a LinkedIn page, and now is a great time to host virtual meetups. It could be monthly, it could be weekly, it could be quarterly, it could be annually. And essentially, choose your platform, create the group, and invite a few people to the group, encouraging them to invite others. And consistency will be key here. So if anyone has questions on that, we can dig deeper. But for now, we're going to move on into establishing thought leadership. So you'll want to post consistently on social media, like we talked about earlier. And the addition here that I'd make for further thought leadership, in addition to posting consistently on those social media platforms, is to post a longer form thought leadership piece at least once a month. And this could be a LinkedIn article, let's say every month, and you're consistent, right? Maybe it's the first of the month, the first Monday of the month, for example, where you dive into a new trend, or this is a fun one, where you interview thought leaders in a space that you'd like to develop leadership in. So that's networking. And then right there, if you have a series where you're interviewing people and helping spread the word and get their name out and establishing your own audience, then that's leverage to get people to speak with you. Because if they're also wanting to get the word out about what they're bringing into the world and working on, that can help break down barriers by being a person who helps other thought leaders get their message out. All right, surprise, you have homework. Don't you kind of love homework? Okay, this will be fun homework, whether you typically like homework or not. So I would like everyone who attended today to attend one or more virtual event per week. This could be something that's 30 minutes. It could be an hour. It could be an 8-hour conference. Whatever is speaking to you, and try different ones out. So for example, even if it's a little out of your comfort zone, try one that's hosted in another country or on a topic that you know nothing about, but you're still interested in, and one that's in your industry to stay abreast of the changes and fluctuations that are going on within your specific industry. And then one hosted in the city that you live in. to kind of stay connected and have that sense of rootedness. And I would also welcome you to having a virtual coffee with at least 3 people in the next month. So that's a little less than once a week, but especially if it's something that you haven't been doing lately, then this is a great starting point. And if you're already doing that or more, then adjust the number accordingly. It is about quality over quantity. However, sometimes we can up-level ourselves and increase the quantity and the quality. So let's see. All right, so I would like to invite you to stay connected after networking remotely. So again, my name is Stephanie Thoma. I'm a networking strategy and leadership coach, as well as founder and author of Confident Introvert. So my book just came out in June. You're welcome to grab it on Amazon or Google search it. It's available at other places as well. And there's a freebie. So if you would like notes on this presentation, I have a one sheet of the main takeaways. So go to stephaniethoma.com/freebie, and Thoma is Thomas without the S, just so you know. And then also, if you'd like to learn more, go to stephaniethoma.com. And then if you're interested in leadership coaching, stepping into your greater authentic leadership, gaining a greater sense of confidence, and leading your life the way that you want to, and getting through any subconscious blocks that you have to really progress and move forward in your life and career, then go ahead and email me. It'll be hi@stephaniethoma.com. All right, and now we do have about 15 minutes for questions. So grateful that Sophie was able to text me some questions so that we did have some interaction during this. So let's see. What I will do now is stop sharing my screen. All right. And get your questions ready because we will have 15 minutes. I will answer anything networking. If you are a self-identified introvert, we can certainly talk about introversion. The floor is yours. I'm here. I'm in the chat. I can see the chat now. And hopefully, yeah, you can see me. Okay, great. Okay, Piper Wilson. Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Piper, for putting that link in there. All right, now I'm going to check the Q&A function. Okay, so Alana asks, and unless we get more questions in the minute or so, then we may just wrap up and you'll have a few minutes to have that sense of solitude and get to decompress a little bit before your next session. But I will have the answer to this question. So Alana Davis asks, one of the things I struggle with is possibly my personal life with work and social media. Limits on combining the two. What are your thoughts of having full separation in social media? I love to integrate the two in my life because work and social media are not two different things. It is life, right? So full transparency of my networking views. Should be integrating the two be right or wrong? Ooh, okay. Elena, this is a hot topic and people do have a variety of different opinions on this. However, I will say that if the pandemic has taught us anything in the business networking space, it is that we're people and we live in homes typically, and we have families, we have friends, and having a stark distinction between the two when, let's say, you're working from your home office or living room is becoming increasingly more difficult. So why resist the natural transition and merging of the two that's happening right now? Bringing your full self to work. And, when it comes to defining what is it to be professional, is to be professional necessarily wearing a business suit and shaking hands back when we could do that, and let's say only talking about work and just being total mystery. No one knows if you have a personal life. You know, as far as they're concerned, they only know work facts about you. And I will say that there was a period of time that is a more sort of dated way to look at work. And within this sort of global shift that is happening, there were some areas of the world, certainly San Francisco, had less of a divide. You know, when people are wearing hoodies at work, it's one of those things where you have to question, wait, would you wear a hoodie in your normal daily life? Maybe you would. Okay, they're merging the two. So that trend was beginning. And yeah, so I would certainly say, Elena, the short answer to your question is I am an advocate of merging the two within reason. I do think that certain things can still be private, but using your discretion, but also knowing, questioning, if I'm keeping something for myself, what is the reason for it? Is it fear? Or is it because it's something that I hold sacred? And so yeah, just kind of working on maybe taking baby steps to being a little bit open. Let's say if you went on a trip to the zoo with a niece or nephew or a child of yours and posting a picture on social media and relating it to something work related, you know, those sorts of things can really sort of break down barriers and help us connect. So, okay, Piper says, you've asked for an awful lot. I feel overwhelmed. Are there any main suggestions you have for a good starting point? Okay, well, thank you, Piper, for expressing your feelings of overwhelm. There is a lot that can be overwhelming about this shift and about networking remotely. And I will say, if anyone else is in the same boat as Piper and they feel overwhelmed at all, then I will say this is not all or nothing. So I've suggested that you attend a networking event, maybe 3 in the next month, or maybe 1 per week, and then set up a one-on-one meeting, you know, a few times a month. If I would also ask you to question, where is my resistance coming from? Where is that stress coming from? Is it because of a past experience that I had that wasn't great? Or do I have so much on my plate that I really should focus on one at a time? So you can adjust those numbers accordingly. Of course, I like to challenge my clients and the people that I work with. However, you know, this being a conversation that is not as interactive, where there's one of me and many more of you at this point in time, I am giving advice and guidance that is applicable and flexible to a lot of people. So your question of, do you have a starting point? So it really depends on your comfort level and your goals. I'm an advocate, being a natural introvert that gets my energy from solitude. My recommendation is to start out with getting more comfortable with one-on-one video chats in the networking spaces. So again, we have our lunch club, Bumble Biz, Shaper. You can decide to choose one app. You don't need to be on all 3. So select one of those apps, and in the next 30 days, have 1 call. That could be a place to begin. And if that feels overwhelming, then you're already at a virtual conference. Perhaps you'd like to find another virtual conference before year's end and dedicate yourself to that. So everyone is at a different stage in how they're doing professionally, personally, and I think it's really great, Piper, that you've expressed where you're at, so that, yeah, we could figure out something that works a little bit better for you. All right, so let's see. We do have 8 minutes to spare. And I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for spending your time with me during our Networking Remotely session. And if you have questions that come to mind, let's say a little bit later today, in a week, there's really, I know that sometimes these things, when it's really rapid learning in, you know, a 30 to 45-minute session, you always have the opportunity to reach out a little bit later. So I'm on social media. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you also have my email. I shouted out earlier, especially if you're interested in coaching within the context of leadership, confidence. I specialize in working with introverts on parlaying those gaps. I've also worked with extroverts and helping them relate to introverts in leadership to help their upward progression. So hi at stephaniethoma.com is great. stephaniethoma.com. Just the door is open. I want to thank you so much for being here. And let's see. Yes, and also don't forget to post on social. Yes, I love these recommendations that we have here. I'm seeing, yeah, let's tag the CMX Summit. And like, just thank you so much for inviting me and having me. Oh, we do have another question. Okay, since we have 6 more minutes, I'm going to be here as long as we can be, okay? So Elena says, okay. So Elena says, I don't want to resist, but for the example you gave earlier about the person that liked music, do you integrate the two with social media? Or should that person have 2 different social media accounts? I look at it as creating my own brand. Okay, so again, this will be an opinion-based question. So I am an advocate of integrating the personal and professional self. Let's say, so an example of a character that is not in alignment with what I personally value would be, let's say, Spider-Man or Superman. They go to work, and then when they come home, they are, they're a superhero. And it's like, wait a second, wouldn't it be kind of cool if they didn't have that dichotomy? But I do think it has been glamorized, this idea of having your work self, and then, oh, nobody knows what I do after work. And I mean, you could be doing anything. You could be like a master baker. It's like, oh, nobody knows. That's kind of cool. But so it depends on what lights you up and what you're comfortable with. However, when it comes to being a fully expressed human being, living in the world in a way that feels really comfortable and right, where you're expressing all of your gifts that you have to give within this life, I do think that lessening that gap can really serve you and others. So, so when you ask, should you have 2 different social media accounts? Well, certainly, for example, if you have CPA services and then DJ services, then yeah, have a couple of different social media accounts for that. But yeah, you may also choose to have some sort of integration. It's really up to you. I know that earlier on in my career, I was given the recommendation, oh, you do so many different things. You should have 6 business cards because you do 6 things. You'll confuse people if you tell them all that you do. But what I found to be really helpful is to find the common thread, the common link amongst all the things that I do. And some of you can probably relate to this. Being multi-passionate, having a variety of talents that you've discovered about yourself, and not wanting to segment or fragment yourself, and to embrace all parts. And maybe some of your talents are expressed in your work and some are expressed after work. All right, great. Okay, so with 4 minutes to spare, it looks like we are wrapped up. So, so yeah, with that, I again want to thank you. You know how to stay connected, and enjoy the rest of your sessions today.